Yo, I appreciate you. I do feel like you showed that video like two times a little bit too much earlier, but you needed everybody to see it. I'm gonna rock with you on that. Because it hurt me, right? It hurt me watching it.
Okay.
Um, but I'll say this, right? I think one of the things that our sisters miss out on when we talk about the protection part, and I want you to ask me the protection question about the men that were there, but I'm gonna go into where I want to respond at, right?
Sure.
I'm gonna start with accountability. And let me give you all an example of real accountability, not all this emotional stuff, the real accountability. I'm going to use if. If I am armed, right? As many of the sisters have talked about, you got to be armed. If I am armed, there have been many a times where if I am armed, I walk away from those types of situations. Why? Because I have the emotional fortitude to understand that more than whatever this is that me and this person is having a conversation about, my family needs me to come home. So even though I have the advantage because I know I am armed and I can take this situation wherever I need to take it, with my emotional fortitude, I recognize that this situation is not a threat to my safety or my personal or physical safety, that I don't need to escalate it. So I'm going to be the guy that he may consider me a bitch. The people around in that restaurant may consider me a bitch, but I actually have it on me. And I'm going to be the one that digresses and goes home to my family. I think sometimes what we don't want to recognize is there is a form of accountability in most of these type of situations that start with your emotional fortitude. Now, let's establish this first. Any man that conducts himself that way when engaged with a woman or another man is exhibiting that he does not have the emotional fortitude, if you have it, for you to be engaged in a back and forth with somebody like that. Once a person has exhibited to you that they do not have the emotional fortitude that you should have, it is now on you to decide, do you match their energy or do you keep your energy and make it home to your family? I'll again establish it. That man exhibited everything that no man should ever be, which is emotionally fragile.
Thanks.
There's no excuse for his behavior. There's no excuse for what he did. There's no excuse for him even getting to a point where he got that far into a back and forth with a woman. None, never, ever. None of that is even acceptable, right? Having established that, the other part of accountability is sisters. I have a daughter. My name is Girl Dad for that reason. Sisters, you also have to exhibit the emotional fortitude to recognize when you are in a space with a man that is not exhibiting the emotional fortitude that you have. Whereas at some point, you have to recognize that this situation is not worth enough of your investment where you are willing to risk you not making it home to your family in 100% health the way that you showed up in this place. That is an accountability on both parts. The one thing that I can control is my accountability. I can't control the next person. But once I recognize that the next person does not have the wherewithal to function intellectually and emotionally where I am functioning, then it's up to me to decide, do I scoop down to their level or do I walk out? Let me give y'all an example. There are times that, again, I'll say if I am armed and I recognize the person that I'm engaged with in just conversation or even escalated misunderstanding does not exhibit the emotional fortitude that is necessary, even though I am armed, I'm going to walk away. Why? Because I'm going to make it home to my family. Whatever you are saying out of your mouth does not impact me so much that I'm going to risk getting home to my family to have this argument or make this point with you. The only people that I have real emotional breakdowns with are the people that I love, that are my family, because I expect something of them as they expect something of me. We miss that. So to the point where I hear a lot of sisters saying like, yeah, you don't expect that from black men. I get that, sisters. But I need us all to collectively understand this. And this is what I even say to young black men. Bro, if you are not so emotionally fragile with this person's words, their words, not their actions threatening your life and your well-being, but their words. If you are not so emotionally fragile with someone's words is causing such a reaction out of you that you need to act outside of what is in your best interest, then it's easy to walk away. There's so many times, even on this app, in conversations in real life, brother, where I walk away, where to the perception of the people around, I'm probably the softest person in the room. At the same time, I am most likely the person in that room that is armed. Because when I walk away, your words have not changed or impacted who I was when I showed up or who I am when I'm leaving. We got to a point where we feel like you can do whatever you want to do, but everybody else has to bear the accountability for your actions. That's not fair. So what I would say to my sisters, the same thing I would teach my daughter, and I say to the 5 sisters that I do have, whenever you encounter somebody in public that is not exhibiting emotional fortitude or the emotional maturity that is on the level of what you have, you do not scoop to their level, because the outcome is going to be based on the level of where they are, which is the outcome we saw in this situation. Now, I'm not going to point out anything that that woman did that whatever, right? But what I would say to us as a collective, when we find ourselves, man or woman, in these types of situations, and you are not emotionally fragile with someone else's words, just their words is not causing you to feel less than who you are, come home to us. Come home to us. I tell my baby girl, she's only 3, so she doesn't understand the full concept. But when she gets of age, I'm going to impress upon her, baby, whether it's a man or a woman, the police, or anybody else that you encounter, what I need you to do, baby girl, is to come home to us. And we will handle whatever the situation is, however is deemed the best at that point. But do not throw it all away because you are emotionally fragile in a moment that someone is saying something to you that's making you feel like you have to escalate or throw away your freedom, your well-being, or your best interest in that moment. So to the question of the men that were there and all of this broke off, here's what I would say I would do. Once I recognize that that man is not exhibiting the level of emotional maturity that I would think a man should exhibit, I can't speak to him at that point because I know he's not at the level of even understanding what I'm saying, because he's already exhibited a heightened level of emotional fragility. So what I would do, as I think I heard one of the sisters say earlier, I'm gonna go to that sister and say, Mama, I'm gonna get your food, right? But what I keep hearing some of the sisters saying is she has a right to keep saying what she wants to say, which makes me believe if I, in that situation, went to her and said, sister, I'm gonna bring your food to your car, this situation is not worth whatever it may turn out to be. What I hear some of the sisters saying is they're gonna respond like, nah, I have a right to say because I can say what I want to say. You sure do, sister. But at that point, as the man that has chosen to step up and say something in that situation, where does that leave me now in trying to protect you? Because what you're going to ask me to do is to turn around and face a man that you and I both are recognizing is not exhibiting a level of emotional maturity that he can even understand what you've been saying, nor can he understand what I've been saying. What you're going to ask me to do is not make it home to my daughter because you want to continue to exhibit the same level of emotional fragility that he is exhibiting. Which at that point, I have to back away and make it home to the people that depend on me. We got to get away from this idea that you can do whatever you want to do, but everybody else is responsible for the outcome of your doing whatever you want to do. That is not life. That is not reality. We got to stop that in our community. If you're going to do whatever you want to do, you also have to be solely responsible for the outcome of the actions that you are exhibiting. Yes, as a community-based person, I feel like I have to say or do something. But my saying or doing something is going to be based on my assessment of the situation and my assessment of what is the best action I can take to get the best outcome for everybody in this situation based on our community. Sister, that brother has shown you, just by having this back and forth with you, that he does not exhibit the emotional maturity that is necessary. Now, at some point, you as my sister, you have to determine, is it worth going back and forth with such a man? And if it's not worth going back and forth with such a man, when I intervene and say, sister, come on, you good. Go do whatever you need to do. We're going to bring you your food. If you don't heed that, what you're asking me to do next is to then put myself in the line of your actions. And that is not fair. We got to be real about these conversations. That is an unfortunate situation on all parts. There's no good or bad that could come out of that situation. But what we have to understand when we assess situations like this, we have to put our overly emotional sides apart and really look at this from what is the best outcome for everybody. And I'll say this, the best outcome for that man was the bruh, don't conduct yourself like this. Why are you so emotionally fragile that you're going into a back and forth with a black woman about something about food? Conduct yourself like you have some emotional fortitude. He clearly exhibited that he didn't have that. To my sister, when a brother exhibits to you that he does not have the emotional fortitude to even engage in such a conversation, why are you going back and forth with a person that has shown you that they don't have the level of emotional control that you may have? At that point, you need to disengage. It's accountability on all parts. When we try to act like there's no accountability for the said victim or the said perpetrator, that is when we're being unfair and dishonest and ultimately putting ourselves in potential situations where we can repeat what we saw in this video. And I'll land right there.